Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly you can see everyone's bank account balance floating above their heads like some twisted video game. The barista making your coffee, your coworker complaining about being broke, that neighbor with the shiny new car they're always washing. What would you discover? Would you be horrified by how little most people actually have saved, or would you realize you're doing way worse than you thought? Well, I've got some news for you. The financial reality of the average American is so shocking that it might completely change how you view your own money situation. Some of these numbers are going to make you feel better about where you stand, while others are going to be a serious wake-up call that could save your financial future. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time digging through financial data, government reports, and economic surveys to understand exactly where Americans stand with their money. If you're someone who actually wants to know the truth about how you compare financially instead of just hoping everything will work out, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up being helpful. Here's something that's going to blow your mind right off the bat. The average American household is carrying over $105,000 in total debt. Let me repeat that because it's absolutely staggering. $105,000. That's not just mortgages we're talking about. That's credit cards, student loans, car payments, and every other form of debt you can imagine all rolled together into one massive financial anchor dragging people down. But here's where it gets even more interesting and honestly a little bit terrifying. While Americans are drowning in debt, they're simultaneously earning more money than ever before. The average American income hit just over $101,000 in recent data, marking an 8% increase from the previous year. So people are earning six figures on average, yet they're still buried under a mountain of debt. What exactly is going on here? The answer lies in something that's going to make you question everything you think you know about how people handle money. Americans are spending an average of $6,270 every single month. That's over $75,000 per year in total spending. Think about that for a second. If you're earning $100,000, paying taxes on that income, and then spending $75,000, how much is actually left over for building wealth or preparing for the future? And this is where the story gets really wild, because when you break down what people are actually spending their money on, some of these categories are going to shock you. The biggest chunk predictably goes to housing. Americans are spending an average of $2,120 per month just to keep a roof over their heads. That's over $25,000 per year on housing alone. Now, $2,100 might not sound completely unreasonable for housing, especially if you live in a major city where rent prices have gone absolutely insane. But here's what makes this number so concerning. Financial experts have been telling us for decades that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. If you're spending $25,000 per year on housing, you'd need to be earning over $83,000 just to stay within that recommended guideline. But wait, because it gets worse, transportation costs are eating up another significant chunk of the average family's budget. We're talking about $913 per month, which adds up to nearly $11,000 per year just to get from point A to point B. And this isn't just gas money we're talking about. This includes car payments, insurance, maintenance, and everything else related to keeping your vehicle running. Speaking of car payments, this is where Americans are making some truly mind-boggling financial decisions. The average payment for a new car has climbed to over $700 per month. $700 for a depreciating asset that's going to lose value the moment you drive it off the lot. Even used car payments are averaging over $500 monthly. Let me put this in perspective for you. If you're paying $700 per month for a car payment, that's $8,400 per year. Over a typical 6-year loan, you're looking at over $50,000 spent on just the car payment alone, not including insurance, gas, maintenance, or any other costs. That's enough money to make a substantial down payment on a house in many parts of the country, or to build a serious investment portfolio that could compound over decades. But here's something that's even more revealing about American spending habits. A recent study found that the average person spends about $1,500 per month on completely non-essential items. $1,500. That's $18,000 per year on stuff they don't actually need. We're talking about dining out, subscription services, impulse purchases, and random things that people buy and then forget about. Now, I'm not saying you should never enjoy your money or that you need to live like a hermit eating ramen noodles every meal, but think about what this means. If the average person is spending $18,000 annually on non-essential items, and they're also carrying over $100,000 in debt, something is seriously backwards about their financial priorities. Here's where it gets really fascinating though. When you look at how much money people actually have saved, the numbers become downright alarming. The median amount that Americans have saved for emergencies is just $600. $600. That's not a typo. You know, half of all Americans have less than $600 saved for unexpected expenses. Even more shocking, about 21% of Americans have absolutely no emergency savings at all. $0, and nearly 60% of Americans couldn't cover an unexpected $1,000 expense without going into debt or borrowing money from someone else. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually means in real life. Imagine you're one of these average Americans with $600 in emergency savings. Your car breaks down and needs a $1,500 repair. Your water heater dies and needs to be replaced. Your kid needs emergency dental work. Any one of these situations, which happen to people every single day, would completely wipe out your emergency fund and force you to go deeper into debt. This is why so many people feel like they're constantly struggling financially. Even when they're earning decent incomes, they're living paycheck to paycheck, not because they don't make enough money, but because they've never created any buffer between themselves and financial disaster. But the retirement savings situation is where things get truly terrifying. Americans believe they need about $1.46 million to retire comfortably, according to recent surveys. That sounds like a reasonable goal, right? Well, here's the reality check. The average American has only $88,000 saved for retirement. Let me say that again slowly. People think they need nearly $1.5 million, but they've only managed to save $88,000. That gap between expectations and reality is absolutely massive. If you retire with $88,000 and follow the traditional 4% withdrawal rule, you'd be able to pull out about $3,500 per year from your retirement accounts. That's less than $300 per month. Could you live on $300 per month in retirement? And here's something that makes this even more concerning. These retirement savings numbers include people of all ages who actually have retirement accounts at all. About 25% of Americans don't even have a retirement account. 1 out of every 4 people you meet is planning to rely entirely on Social Security when they retire, assuming it's still around by then. For those approaching retirement, Social Security benefits provide the backbone of their financial plan, whether they want it to or not. The average monthly Social Security check comes in at around $1,550. Now, if you're thinking that doesn't sound too bad, let me do some quick math for you. That's about $18,600 per year. Try to imagine living on $18,600 annually in today's economy. Your rent alone in most cities would consume that entire amount, leaving you with exactly $0 for food, transportation, healthcare, or anything else that keeps you alive. And here's the kicker that nobody talks about. This is the average benefit. If you had years where you didn't work or you earned very little money during your career, your Social Security check could be significantly lower than this already inadequate amount. But the Social Security situation gets even more complicated when you consider what's happening with the program's long-term viability. Many younger Americans are planning their retirement assuming they won't receive a single penny from Social Security, treating any benefit they might get as a pleasant surprise. And honestly, given the funding challenges facing the program, that might not be such a pessimistic approach. Now let's talk about something that reveals just how disconnected Americans are from financial reality. When surveyed about their spending habits, 92% of people claim they're actively trying to improve how they handle money. 92%. That sounds encouraging, right? Well, here's where it gets fascinating in the worst possible way. That same survey revealed that about 89% of people wish they saved more money. But when asked what they'd do if they suddenly received an unexpected $10,000 windfall, 40% admitted they wouldn't put any of it into savings. Let me repeat that, because it perfectly captures the insanity of how people think about money. They wish they saved more, they claim they're trying to improve their spending, but when presented with free money, nearly half would spend it all instead of saving any of it. This kind of thinking helps explain why so many Americans find themselves in such precarious financial situations despite earning more money than previous generations. It's not that they don't understand the importance of saving, it's that they've convinced themselves there will always be tomorrow to start making better choices. The credit score landscape tells an interesting story about American financial behavior. The average FICO score sits at 715, which actually falls into the good credit category. This suggests that most people are at least making their payments on time and keeping their debt levels somewhat reasonable, but don't let that number fool you into thinking everyone has mastered the art of credit management. There are still millions of Americans walking around with credit scores in the 500s and 600s, wondering why they can't get approved for decent interest rates on anything. Your credit score affects everything from your mortgage rate to your car loan terms, and some employers even check credit scores before hiring. The difference between having excellent credit and mediocre credit can cost you tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime in higher interest rates. Here's something that's going to make you question everything about American consumer culture. The average household is carrying over $9,000 in credit card debt. $9,000 in high-interest debt for stuff that's probably sitting in closets gathering dust or already thrown away. What makes this even more painful is that credit cards typically charge 15 to 25% interest annually. If you're paying 20% interest on $9,000 in credit card debt, you're throwing away $1,800 per year just in interest payments. That's money that could be going toward building wealth, investing for the future, or paying down other debts. Instead, it's making credit card companies incredibly rich while keeping consumers trapped in a cycle of debt. But here's what really gets me about credit card debt. Most of it comes from buying things people don't actually need. Sure, sometimes people use credit cards for genuine emergencies or unexpected expenses, but let's be honest about what's really happening. A lot of that $9,000 went toward clothes that are now out of style, electronics that have been replaced by newer models, restaurant meals that were forgotten an hour later, and impulse purchases that seemed like a good idea at the time. The housing market has created its own set of financial challenges that are reshaping the American dream. The average age of a first-time homebuyer has reached an all-time high of 36 years old. Think about what this means. Previous generations were buying their first homes in their 20s, building equity throughout their 30s and 40s. Today's generation is renting for an extra decade or more, paying someone else's mortgage instead of building their own wealth. This delay in homeownership has massive implications for long-term wealth building. Homeowners typically accumulate significantly more wealth over their lifetimes than renters, not just because of property appreciation, but because forced savings through mortgage payments creates discipline that many people struggle to maintain on their own. The average home price has soared to around $350,000, but that's just the purchase price. When you factor in property taxes, insurance, utilities, and maintenance costs, The true cost of homeownership can easily double your monthly housing expenses. And here's something that might surprise you. The average home size has been steadily increasing over the decades, contributing to these higher prices. Modern home buyers have become increasingly demanding about what they consider acceptable. Fewer people are willing to settle for homes with outdated kitchens, single bathrooms, or fewer bedrooms. This pickiness contributes to higher costs and longer saving periods before people can afford to buy. Student loan debt has created an entire generation of young adults who start their careers already drowning in obligations. The average federal student loan debt sits at nearly $38,000 per borrower, while private student loans average around $55,000. These numbers have tripled since 2007, creating a crisis that affects everything from homeownership rates to retirement savings. Here's what makes student loan debt particularly devastating. These graduates are entering the job market with no experience, which means they're typically earning entry-level salaries while carrying debt loads that would challenge someone with years of experience. They're trying to pay rent, buy cars, and start their adult lives while making payments on educational debt that might not even be providing the return on investment they expected. The monthly debt payment situation in America has reached truly staggering proportions. The average person pays $1,233 every month just toward debt payments. That includes everything from credit cards and student loans to car payments and mortgages, $1,233 every single month before they can even think about saving for the future or building wealth. To put that $1,200 monthly debt payment in perspective, imagine if you took that same amount and invested it instead. Over 30 years at an 8% return, that would grow to nearly $2.7 million. But instead of building wealth, the average American is handing that money over to banks and credit card companies every single month. Here's something that's going to make you laugh or cry, depending on your perspective. Americans spend about $1,500 monthly on completely non-essential items. $1,500, that's $18,000 per year on stuff they don't actually need. We're talking about subscription services they forgot they signed up for, impulse purchases that seemed brilliant at 2 a.m, and dining out so frequently that their kitchen exists purely for Instagram photos. Now, before you start feeling superior because you only spend $1,400 on non-essentials, let me paint you a picture of what this really means. The same people spending $18,000 annually on random stuff are simultaneously complaining that they can't afford to save for retirement. They're the ones saying they're broke while their closets are full of clothes with tags still attached and their garages are packed with exercise equipment that's been used exactly twice. The psychology behind this spending is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. When surveyed, people consistently blame external factors for their financial struggles. It's inflation, it's their low salary, it's the economy, it's anything except the fact that they spent $300 last month on food delivery apps and another $200 on streaming services they rarely use. But here's where the American financial story takes a truly depressing turn. Those approaching retirement age, the people who should be financial role models for younger generations, aren't exactly crushing it either. Americans between 55 and 64 have a median of only $134,000 saved for retirement. Those already in retirement, ages 65 to 74, have managed to accumulate a median of just $164,000. Let's do some quick math that's going to make you question everything. If you retire with $164,000 and follow the traditional 4% withdrawal rule, you can safely pull out about $6,500 per year without depleting your savings. That's roughly $540 per month. $540 per month to live on in retirement. Could you cover your basic living expenses on $540 monthly? Your rent or mortgage payment alone probably exceeds that amount. And we haven't even talked about food, transportation, healthcare, or any of the other necessities that keep you alive and functional. This is why Social Security becomes so critical for most retirees, whether they planned for it or not. The average Social Security check provides about $1,550 monthly, which sounds decent until you realize that's only $18,600 per year. Add that to your retirement savings withdrawal of $6,500, and you're looking at a total annual income of about $25,000. $25,000 per year to fund your golden years. That's less than what many people spend annually on their car payments and insurance combined. It's barely above the federal poverty line for a single person. Yet, this is the financial reality awaiting millions of Americans who are currently in their peak earning years. The income statistics reveal another layer of this complex financial puzzle. The median income varies dramatically by age group, which helps explain why younger Americans are struggling so much to get ahead. People in their early 20s are earning a median income of just over $30,000 annually. Those in their late 20s and early 30s see that number jump to around $51,000. So there you have it, the brutally honest financial portrait of the average American. If these numbers made you uncomfortable, that's probably a good thing, because discomfort is often the first step toward making real changes. Whether you discovered you're doing better than most people or realized you've got some serious work to do, the key is understanding that average doesn't have to be your destiny. With some basic financial discipline and the willingness to make different choices than the majority, you can easily outperform these statistics and build the kind of financial security that most people only dream about. The question isn't whether it's possible to do better than average, it's whether you're ready to stop making excuses and actually do something about it.